Hi YouTube. We're going to do some body work on the 56 today. We're at least going to get started on it. From the passenger door, let's see if we can get this to show up on video. Right here there's some paint bubbling, and pretty sure that's rust underneath. Let me go around to the other side. Okay, right before I started this video, we're on the driver's side now, and this is the pillar right behind the rear door. I saw a little bubble in, like right here in this area. I can't really see it with the shadow, but so I pried on it a little bit, and this whole chunk came off. Clearly, somebody just patched over rust before they painted this thing. And so we've got a big section here to deal with. We have a little bit of bubbling on the back of the door, and the same thing on the front of the door right here and here. So this is a little worse than I thought. I'm gonna see what's available in terms of replacement metal here before I get started, and then I will grind this down and see what's going on underneath these door bubbles on both sides. Okay, I probed around on these doors a little bit, and you know, sure enough, these bubbles are rust underneath. There's two patch panels available for this door. One is 7 inches up, which only takes me to here. The other one is a half a door patch panel, which takes you up 2 feet, but I can cut it down, I'm sure. So I ordered a half door patch panel for this side and a 7-inch for the other side. And once those parts come in, I'll cut these doors open and tack on the new patch panels, get them painted. All right, while we're waiting for the brake parts to come in, we're going to start on the body work here. The patch panels came in. Got one for the rear of the cab, and we've got the door patch panel. So I'm going to start by, I've already started, by grinding away and see what we're dealing with here and how much of this needs to come out. Looks like this has been patched before. I mean, obviously they just bondoed right over the rust, but there's multiple layers of this orange paint here. And this truck was just restored 7 years ago. But you can see, let's see if we can zoom in. You can see you got the Bondo, you got a primer coat, you got an orange base coat, and then a different, you know, probably a clear coat, another base coat, and a clear coat on top of that. So we're gonna do it right this time and replace this whole panel. Okay, now I have to figure out how I'm gonna precisely cut this and cut this so that they match. So what I'm gonna do first is cut this off just above the rust so I can see how much more I need to cut off. And then I think I'll cut this piece a little above where this is going to end up, and then slowly and very carefully continue to cut until I get this thing to fit just right. All right, I drew my line where I'm going to make the first cut. And you know, it doesn't have to be precise, but I used a level. I needed a straight edge anyway, so it should be a fairly straight cut. And let's get that old piece out of there. using this cutting wheel to cut this, and as the sparks fly, I put this piece of cardboard just to protect all the paint. So I'm not sure what I'm gonna do when I get into this tight situation. I might have to cut it by hand. All right, now that I'm near the end, I can fit the grinder in without the cardboard. The sparks will just fly underneath the truck. We're fine. Now that I got the top cut, I've got to go underneath because the inner panel is connected right here and right here up to the cut. Looks like some of it's going to have to be replaced anyway, but let me go ahead and cut this out. Okay, I got the piece off, and I think we've got, I cut it into good metal all the way up at the top. It's good thick metal, so I'm happy with that. The inside piece is going to have to be repaired too. And, I can see I cut some of the inside piece off with the outer shell. And I will cut some more of this off and fabricate a piece to go in there. I know they do sell this piece, but I think I can fabricate a piece. And then we'll match it up to the new piece. And I will cut the new piece to fit in here very, very carefully. All right, I'm ready to cut this new piece. I measured it, drew a line where I want to cut it. I measured it 5 different ways. It's very difficult to measure this with all the crazy angles, but it's got to fit in the bottom of that cab corner. So what I'm gonna do is cut it, maybe a 1/16, maybe an 1/8 larger than I think it's supposed to be, and then fit it, and then grind it until I get it to fit just the way I want. First time I ever did anything like this, so it'll be interesting. Let's go ahead and cut the piece. All right, I'm probably pretty close with this piece. I'm sure it's going to need a little fine tuning. And to start with is right over here on the edge. I really didn't want to mess with inside the door jamb, but I think I am going to cut it right here and over here. Take advantage of all this new steel here. It's just as a little compromised here, so it'll be a good idea to do that. I'll take this plate off in anticipation of welding this. I don't want to get this messed up. And I did break down and buy the inner metal also, which is sitting right here, so it's going to have to be cut as well. I'm not as concerned about that as I am getting this piece to fit very precisely. It looks pretty good right now, but once I get this edge cut, I'll know it'll probably need a little customization and grinding along this top edge to get it to fit just right. All right. Get this piece to fit in here. First thing is I'm a little high right here, so I'll grind that down a little bit. Keep grinding, fitting, till I get this seam as close as I can. Then I'll cut this inner piece to length. Okay, I've got the inner piece cut, and it will go right up in here. Like so. And I will do a lap weld up from the inside on that. All right, we got a few tacks holding in there. Overall, I'm pleased. Will it be 100% Bondo free when I'm done? I don't think so, but it's going to be pretty close. And considering this is the first panel I've ever welded and my second weld job, I'm happy so far. All right, finished welding this panel up. It's not the prettiest, but it's not bad. I'm happy with my first panel weld job. It's going to take a little bit of Bondo to finish it off, but the next step is to weld this inner bracket in, and then put a coat of Bondo on this. Thin coat. I don't think it'll take much. It's actually going to take much here. There's a little depression. Maybe I can push it out a little bit from the inside, but this isn't going to take too much Bondo to finish this off. Okay, in order to fix this rust down here, I need to weld in, and I don't know how far until I take this door apart I'm going to go. But I guess step one is this door doesn't quite line up. This door needs to be raised up a little this way. And to do that, you need to loosen these 3 bolts here on this hinge. And I guess loosen the ones on the bottom and pivot the door this way. The problem is this hinge is out of adjustment. So I'm going to have to elongate the holes in the hinge. So this door has to come off anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and take the door off. And of course, to do that, I need to take the handle off, the 2 levers, all of these screws holding this panel on, and that will give me access to the hinge screws that are right about here. And then there's an access panel on the bottom that comes off, and the bottom hinge screws to this hinge are right here, these 3. And then this door will just slide right off. Okay, on the door, the paint was bubbling right here. And I wasn't sure if I was just gonna do this section. And it was also bubbling right here, do this section. But as I ground it out, I can see there's rust popping through out this panel. There's some more right here. So I think I'm gonna measure up 6 inches and cut straight across and replace that whole bottom 6-inch panel. So let me cut this out. I think I ground off a good quart of body filler from the bottom 6-7 inches of this door. And there's the piece I'm gonna weld back in, specifically designed for this. So I'm gonna use the full piece, which is 7 inches. I put it up here and I marked a line, and there's probably a 1/16 of an inch wrapped around down here. So this will be a 1/16 of an inch longer than it needs to be to give me some room to get these 2 panels to line up. All right, I've got my line marked where I'm gonna cut. And then I also put a reference line, which is roughly 8 7/16 up from the bottom. It's 1 inch from the cut. And I also ground off all the edges just with a grinder along here and along the bottom. You can see it's separated. And I'm gonna make the big cut now. Get that old piece out of there. By the way, that's the grinder I'm using. And I am using all the safety equipment. I got an N95 mask, goggles, and noise protectors on. Okay, we got the panel off, and interesting, I didn't even grind here, but there was a hole, and that's Bondo. So yeah, this generally was in good shape, but a few places it's poking through. But what's even worse is the inner door is rusted a little bit. So I'm gonna have to fabricate something, cut some of this off. Not all the way, but I certainly don't want to mess with that door hinge. The door's aligned pretty well right now. All right, let's get the new piece fitted up and fabricate something for here. And maybe I can even salvage, well, I'll get some good 18 gauge somewhere and fabricate a piece. All right, the more I'm looking at this, I'm gonna order the lower inner door skin, this piece right here. It comes all the way up to the top, but I am not gonna mess with that hinge. I'll probably cut it right along here and splice it in. So it's gonna be at least a week until that comes in. Okay, I've got the new piece of steel for the inner bottom door. And what I'm gonna do is mark it from the inside. So I held it up in place and I marked some dots here that correspond with dots here. Then I took a square and I measured the height, and I measured the corresponding height here, and I did each one individually. And I've got some reference lines, and I'll connect this with a straight edge and cut just below it, and then grind it to an exact fit. Okay, upon further inspection, I'm not going to use this sheet metal. I'm going to order a new one that's more complete here at the corner edge, because my corner edge is rusted out here. And you know, this said it went up 1 inch, but it doesn't go up 1 inch on the corners. So they do make one, a reproduction that comes up to about here. And I'll cut it down because I don't need that much, but again, I'm certainly not going to mess with this hinge area, so I'll cut it down here, but I definitely need these corners, so I'll reorder a new piece. All right, we got the new inner door panel, lower door panel in, and it looks like a good quality door panel. So the challenge is going to be cutting the old one out and matching the new one up perfectly. And again, I'm not going to mess with this hinge right here, so this needs to be cut like this, up and over, and then I need to cut the new one to match. So let me strategize how I'm going to do that. All right, I have a plan. I wish this was rocket science, but I think it's part art. I put a piece of masking tape right along the bottom edge. So the top edge of the masking tape's along the bottom edge of where the door panel is now. And my plan is going to be to cut this a little lower than I actually want. Cut this a little higher than I actually want, clamp this onto place, and then cut them both together So even if my cut isn't straight, they're gonna line up and I should get a good weld. So that's the plan right now. Also, I measured at certain strategic points the distance between the bottom of this and the top of this edge. And I wrote it down along the way. Most of them were 7 3/16. There was an anomaly here, 7 1/8. I don't know, maybe this is not straight here. So that should help. All right, I've got the door marked approximately where I want to cut it. I'm going to come down here, then I'm coming down to avoid the hinge and over and around. And I marked the new piece the same way, over, up, over, and down. So first I'm going to cut the door. And I'll cut this a little larger and hold it up into place and see where we are. All right, I've got the bottom piece cut out. Now the challenge is cutting the top piece to fit. And it's pretty important it gets very close. Okay, got the new piece rough cut. Hopefully a little bigger than it needs to be. I'll start trimming this up. Like this is a little, this needs to come off a little. That'll drop that down, that'll drop this down. And figure out what's going on here. And hopefully get this thing to fit a little better. All right, I've been fitting this for the last 5 hours. Grinding a little, putting it on, seeing where the high and the lows are. You can see my marks where I've been grinding down on it. And I think it's as good as I can get it. I've got the proper distance from here to the edge, all the way across, compared to what the original was. And I think the strategy is to tack it here, hold it in place, tack. This will end up flush, I'm confident. And the other thing I did was I made a curve of the old door on cardboard, and it follows the curve pretty well. So I think that's it. I think what I'll do is, well, I can do it anytime. I was going to paint the inside of this door with some rust inhibitor, and I will definitely do that before I put on the outer piece. It's going to be hard to see, but I put on the outer lower door skin, and seems to fit pretty well. So that was just another check just to make sure that that guy fits as well. All right, I think we're ready to weld the inner door panel on. I sanded the hell out of the inner door and put a rust encapsulator all over it, both sides. And then also I made this template, and I held it up, and you know, when the bottom piece is on there, the curve pretty much follows the correct contour, which is another important metric. So let me clamp this guy up. Well, I'm gonna wait for the paint to dry. And next time you see it, I'll clamp this guy up, do another check. All right, first thing I'm gonna do is weld this bracket. I'll clamp this and weld that piece back on. All right, I'm ready to weld this bottom piece on. I just spent the last hour getting these two surfaces to line up. Ground just a little bit more in the high spots. Bent the metal just a little bit to get it to where it's flat. And I got a little bit of a gap over here. And that's as good as I can get it. So I'm gonna put a couple of tacks. I'm gonna start here and tack around. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close. And also the important curvature. Looks pretty good. There's a little bit of a gap there because the outer door skin's not on, which is what it should be. All right, I've got a few tacks holding this guy in place. And I guess I'll just go ahead and fill in and then grind it down. That looks pretty good so far. All right, I got it welded and ground down. This is my second weld job, and this was pretty intricate. It's critical to get this thing aligned properly. Of course, I won't know until I get it on the door, which I am going to do right now before I put on the outer skin. And getting closer to my goal of no Bondo, but I'm not quite there yet. Again, this is only my second weld job. Starting to get the hang of it. All right, I rehung the door temporarily just to see how the panel fits, and it fits fine. I checked the gap. I checked the curvature. I put this panel and I held it up in place and it fits fine. So tomorrow we'll weld this guy in place, rehang the door, or maybe I'll paint the door before I rehang it. We'll see. All right, next morning working on this door, I noticed that this bows in the middle. So if I put a straight edge on it, and I did put a straight edge on the other door that hasn't been touched yet, and it is straight. If I put a straight edge on it, you can see there's a gap. It's flush on the end, flush on the other end, and a gap in the middle. And this new panel is flat, and the other door is flat. So I'm gonna take these and see if I can just pry it out a little bit in the middle. Because when it's closed, I noticed the gap down here is a little tighter too. All right, I want to test fit this panel. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bend this lip around. And to do that, I'm gonna use this to bend it around. It's a little thicker than the 16 gauge steel. It's twice as thick. I've got some 16 gauge too. I might, let me start with this. Knock this around flat, and then I can hold it up into place and see how it fits. All right, I pounded a nice lip into this panel, and let's go see how it fits. This is 16 gauge, so it's thicker than the 18 gauge on the truck. All right, got the test fit, and it's looking pretty good. We've got good gaps all around when I hold it up into place, and more important, is this right here, because I'm not going to be able to do anything with that once this is welded in place. So I think I'm ready to start tacking this panel on. It turns out I didn't like where this factory bend was on the front. So I'm going to try to add a 1/16 to the bend right here in the vise. I don't know exactly where it's going to bend. I'm going to make my best guess and try to get it right. All right, the panel's fitting a lot better now. We got a pretty good line over here, and this is where the problem was. This was a 1/16 in, so now it's pretty even. I did rough up this metal here, straightening this out and then rebending it. So now this isn't exactly fitting flush, but I think I can work that back. I'm gonna take the door off and work it back. The good news is that the gap along the bottom is perfect. This is a nice straight seam, and both door edges are gonna have nice lines. All right, one last look before I tack it. Got a straight edge here, got a really tight seam all the way across. It starts gapping just a little bit on this end, but I can hold that up once I tack that end a couple. And we got a straight edge here. So we're ready to go. Rough weld's finished. Let me grind it down. All right, this is it. Ground down. Straight. Time for some filler. All right, I've got a thin layer of all metal Bondo over the seam. It looks good. I've got the holes drilled with the weather stripping. And now I'll finish the front side of the door. All right, got a thin coat of primer on. Looks good. I will go over this with a little glaze and putty in the areas that I knew I couldn't sand anymore. And right in here, little glaze and putty, smooth out the rough edges. And then a few more coats of primer sanded in between each coat. Before I took the door off, I noticed this crack. It's troubling. I don't even think it's a natural seam, but I'm gonna grind it down and test out my welding skills here. All right, we got this crack welded. Not as good as my YouTube brethren, but it's a hell of a lot stronger than it was. The weather seal goes here. I'll put a little fiberglass Bondo here, smooth it out. Once it's painted, you'll never know. And it's strong. All right, got the outer door Bondo sanded. Used the long 17-inch with number 40, back and forth, get it nice and straight. Then went over it with some 100. Throw a coat of primer on it. It's nice and flat. I'm gonna test fit the door now. Passenger door, cut 12 inches up. And the inner is rusted a little bit. So I'm gonna take the leftover piece from the driver's side, cut it along the edge, cut this along the edge and weld that in. Clean all this up, put the rust-proof encapsulator on it. All right, found another stress crack on the driver's door. Let me weld that. All right, I'm working on getting this door panel lined up, and right here, I get a nice gap, but it the cab sticks out a little bit here, and I could build the door up, but the door is flat the whole way. So I'm going to do something I've never tried before. In this cab corner, I'm going to grind a slot right here, push this metal in, and then re-weld this. Should be interesting. Okay, I've got the groove cut in. I'm going to take a block of wood and a hammer, see if I can coax this in, and then if I get it to where I like it, I'll weld this back up. All right, we got this cab corner welded up and ground down, and it sure fits a lot better. The cab corner doesn't bulge out anymore. So I'll go ahead and put a thin coat of Bondo on that. All right, got the old bottom inner passenger door and the new one fabricated to fit. I'm going to clamp this in place, and I'll show you what it looks like in place. All right, here's the inner bottom piece clamped in place. I'm just going to put a couple of tacks, I mean 2 maybe, and then make sure this door opens and closes properly, and this lip looks like it's lined up properly. And that's why I still have the door on. Otherwise, it would be much easier to work with this with the door off. Okay, I've got the passenger door off. I've got the inner piece tacked into place, and now I've got to weld it up. And I just slid on the outer panel, and it seems to fit really nice. It's just sitting there. Okay, I put rust encapsulator on the inside of the outer panel and the inside of the door, so I'm at a standstill until this stuff dries. If it took 60 years for this car to rust the first time without any rust encapsulator, this is going to last forever. Passenger door ready to go back on. All right, we're ready for a second coat of primer here. First coat of primer I put on, and the one before this, I didn't put the hardener in, so I had to scrape it all off. Got a lot of dings in the door, scratches from doing that, so a couple more coats of primer with hardener should cover that. And then we're ready for color. All right, I got the color on. It looks pretty good. Doors are functioning well. I don't have the rubber on yet. And the only thing left is got a little bit of orange peel, so I'm gonna cut and buff this. I'll start with an 800, move up to a 1500, a 2000, and then hit it with a buffing wheel. But we're all pretty good. This is the door. We had the 12-inch bottom skin put on. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.